the NPW126S battery is back in my world. Today is a gear update. We're going to go over what I've bought and sold so far this year. And I have made a couple of changes, so I just thought I would make this video to show you some of the mistakes I've made, some of the successes I've had, what gear I've recently sold, what gear I've purchased, and why. And then just a few updates on some gear that I reviewed last year that I no longer have. Stick around to the end and I'll share a bonus of one piece of gear that I just bought that I'm going to do a separate video on. Let's talk about what I've sold first. The last video that I made before this one was on the AK diffuser and the fact that I sold the 80mm macro. Now I did a review of the 80mm macro and it was a good review. I like the lens a lot. It is a sharp, beautiful lens. The only things that I didn't like about it after using it for a while, and that's very different than when you first get it and you're all excited and you do a review on it. It's after a while when you've used a lens, or you realize that you're not using a lens. That's where it's important to go back and just clarify things. So yes, I sold the 80mm macro. If you want to know all the details about that, you can watch the video before this one. I'll link it in the description. So that one's gone. And I ended up buying back the Laowa 65mm, which I did a review on last year. I liked the lens. There were just a couple of things that at the time I thought were cons, but in the end I found that this lens is really the one that I wanted to use for macro, even though there's no electronic contacts and it definitely didn't have image stabilization like the 80mm macro did, but I really like this lens. The other lens that I sold was the 13mm Viltrox lens, which I didn't do a review on, but I've owned for probably over a year, and I just never used it very much. It's a great lens. I hear a lot of people like to use it for vlogging, but for me, I think the 16mm works better for that. I just thought it was too wide for this room, and I would have to pull it too close to me, and then you get distorted, and there's just lots of things. But other than that, I'm not out hiking doing landscapes and places where I'd like to use a 13mm. I just didn't use it, so off it went. The 18-55, I did a review recently on the 16-50, using it for video and how I liked it better than the 18-55. I'll link that video for you as well in the description, and you can see why I chose the 16-50. So that's the one I'm using on my XS20 right now, and I like the way that this looks in the room, so we're keeping this. It also has less focus breathing. The next one that I sold was the DJI Mic 1, and I ended up replacing it with the 2. And I'll explain why in just a second, why I ended up doing that. And I'll just say, I liked the case on the original versus this one better. This one's just very metal, cold. The other one was nice and soft, or easier to grip. I don't know. I prefer the original case, but that's not a deal breaker for this. The other thing that I sold was the Clever Supply Sidekick Pro. I backed that on Kickstarter. I did a review of it, and it was a mediocre review. I wouldn't say I was raving about that bag. I didn't really think it was well suited for a sling, more for around your waist. And it just wasn't filling a need for me. I think it was just a little bit too small. You can watch that review and you'll pick up on the fact that by the end of it, I wasn't really that convinced that I was going to keep it, that I might need some more time. And I ended up just selling it. That's gone. That pretty much covers the things that I sold. Let's go over some of the things that I purchased and why. First off, I bought an Action 4 on Amazon. And I didn't buy the Action 5 Pro because for what I want to use it for is just very minimal. I wanted to do some street photography, and I'd like to have something that I can just click onto here. I bought a little necklace. it's not like a necklace, but you know, it's a hoop that goes around that you can just rest it here, so that you can video yourself taking photos and talk about what it is you're looking at and how you're doing your composition. I've seen some photographers on YouTube do that, and I really enjoyed watching those videos. Faisal Westcott, I'll link his YouTube channel in the description, but he does a really great job of doing that. That was the inspiration for this. I ended up buying this, the 50mm f2 lens. Last year I sold the 56 1.2, the original that I've had. I just never really used that lens. The close focusing distance wasn't very good on that, so it wasn't great in the garden. I don't do a lot of portraits, so it just didn't make sense. But I like this little lens. As soon as I put it on the camera, I was like, oh, I like this. I'm going to give it some use this spring and take it out for some street photography as well. So I like that. And I bought you're going to laugh at this. Okay, so I bought an extra XS20, a second one. And it's up here filming this table right now. Now let me explain why I did that. It was an expensive decision, but there's a reason, because I want to use this setup in the kitchen as well, because I have another YouTube channel and I really want to do some cooking with an overhead. And I have a C-stand here. So I just like the fact that both of the cameras are the same. So I can back up all their settings on my phone in the X app, right? And I can restore the settings to the other one. So that was great. When I got this second XS20, and I picked that one up like new condition on B&H, and it still had a 1-year warranty, so that was great. I picked that up, and I just restored the settings from the current main camera that I've got. And I didn't have to do any setup on it. It was great. Everything was already there. So now I have both the same settings for recording the videos. I was using my phone up here. I just got tired of it because my phone would ring while I was recording, or I'd get texts, and it's just, I did it for a year and it just wasn't ideal. I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted to spend the money for an overhead camera and just buy another XS20. I actually could have bought the XM5, but that one has a recording limit. I just like the fact that these don't, and it's just easier. I like having things the same for both, so it's just easier to work. So I'm left with 7 lenses now. 16 to 50, the 23mm f1.4 LMWR, which is up here, and it's filming the table. And it actually, the focal length just, and the height that I've got it is just perfect. It's out of frame on the main camera, and it just works really nice for this table. So yeah, I've got 7 lenses. 16 to 50, 23mm, which is up here, the 27mm, which is over here on a mysterious camera that I haven't mentioned yet, and 35mm, 1.4, my lens that I've had for 10 years that I will never sell, ever. I will never sell this lens. I love this lens. It took that picture of Henry. So there you go. I mean, look at it. He's just beautiful. So I'm very happy that I have this lens and I'm never selling it. Okay, I digress. The 50mm, and I've got the 70 to 300, which I bought early last year, I believe. And I have used it last summer, and it's the largest lens that I've got. So I'm on a mission to kind of slim down and work with smaller lenses. I really enjoy using my camera with smaller lenses. This is the largest one that I've got. It's not very heavy though, and it takes really beautiful photos in the garden, and also great for videoing bees and insects. It does a really nice job. So I'm going to keep this for another summer, use it in the garden, and we'll just see if if it's worthwhile for me to keep this, or if I can do just as well in the garden with the Laowa 65mm lens. The other thing that I bought was the Osmo Pocket 3. And I really like this. I've been doing a couple of videos on the sofa in the living room and just talking videos. And I used the Osmo Pocket 3 for those, and I was really happy with the way that they came out. And that's how I got introduced to the DJI Mic 2, because I had the Mic 1 set that I bought years ago. The Mic 2 came with that one, the Osmo Pocket 3. And I like the fact that it just hooks up to this, and it also just directly hooks up to the Action 4. But what I ended up doing was I sold my original DJI wireless mic set that had the three, the two transmitters and the receiver. I bought the box on Amazon, and I bought a set that had the receiver and transmitter, and it was an open box. So I ended up getting what I had before, which was two transmitters and a receiver. And I didn't have any duplicity going on where I had this one, and plus I had a place to charge it now for the wireless 2 versus the 1, because I had a box that, and just so you know, the boxes are not interchangeable. So you got to get the box for the DJI wireless mic 2 for the wireless mic 2 transmitters and receiver. You can't mix and match. You can't put the wireless mic 1 in here, and you can't put the wireless mic 2s in the one box, so in the charging case. It doesn't work. That's what I did. It minimized the cost of switching it all out. It was a little bit less expensive than buying. And of course, if I would have bought the charger with the two transmitters and the receiver, then I'd have an extra transmitter. Now I've got 3 transmitters, and I really don't need 3. The Osmo Pocket 3 Creator Combo Kit came with one transmitter. I bought a transmitter and receiver, and then I bought the charging case separately. And it ended up being less expensive than buying the 2 transmitters with the charging case and receiver. Did that make any sense? I'm not thinking it really did. Okay, for the last thing, the NPW126S battery is back in my world. I didn't really think that was going to happen. The very first video I did here on YouTube was switching from the X-T3 to the X-T5, and how I was very excited that I was going to be using the new battery, the larger battery on the X-T5, and then I got the XS20s and they used the larger battery, and I was like, whew, great, I never have to deal with these little batteries again. But I've always wanted to try a rangefinder style camera. And I've never done it. I've always gotten a camera with the viewfinder in the middle. And that's just the way that I've gotten used to shooting. But this little camera over here is a rangefinder style. And it's so beautiful. It just is. I never really thought I would buy this. Okay, here it is. So it's the XE4. And I debated back and forth for quite a long time. And I've been looking on eBay trying to find one that was in really nice condition. There's some that you can get in Japan from Map Camera and a couple of other vendors that sell on eBay. They do show the actual photographs of the item, so you can really zoom in and see the condition of the camera. But I found this one on eBay from a seller here in the US, and it is just in pristine condition, and it was less expensive than the ones that were listed from Japan. You know, I just bought the 27mm lens, and this is the perfect camera for this little lens, and I bought a little aftermarket hood for it, and I am really happy. I picked up this little aftermarket thumb grip and a little red shutter button, and now I've got my Clever Supply strap, and I've ended up putting it on this camera, and I guess I can interchange it with the X-T5, but the weight of, and this is not a big camera, the X-T5, it's not that big, but the weight of this camera versus this little camera is just really, really nice. It's just, everything's a little bit smaller. You know, the viewfinder's smaller, the print in the viewfinder is smaller, you know, trying to read things on the screen, it's a little bit smaller. There's a couple of things that are very different. One everybody knows about is the fact that there's just not a lot of buttons. There's no image stabilization in this, and it's a 26 megapixel sensor, but there's something about it, and I was really hesitant when I first got it. I thought, I'm probably not going to like this. But when I took it out and actually started to play with it and use it, I was like, I really like this camera. And I like the fact that this thing flips all the way up if you wanted to see yourself and just record a quick video of yourself. Granted, I could do that with the XS20, but I like the lightweight feel of this, and I like the silver. I haven't had a silver one since I had the X100S, which I sold back in 2015. So I haven't had a rangefinder style camera since then. So it's been, what, 11 years now? I'm really looking forward to using this camera. It's like a perfect little travel camera to go around with. But again, I ended up having to buy an extra battery, and I'm back in the little Fuji battery world. Basically, I did this video because I just wanted to be honest about things that I reviewed, whether I've kept them, whether I'm using them, whether I like them in the end. And I think sometimes when you do a review, it's just like the new Fuji camera that just came out, you know, the GFX 100RF. I mean, the reviews on YouTube, you just get plastered with reviews from everybody talking about, you know, how great the camera is. There's a few that are very, I would say, that are more detailed and definitely talk about the cons just as much, which I really appreciate. And you know who you are if you're those YouTubers. But many are just, you know, it's just everybody's telling you to buy it and or why it's so great. And yeah, I know there's an XE5 coming out in the summer. And if the supplies are anything like the X100-6 or the X100-5 or V, you might be waiting a long time to get it. And that really wasn't what I wanted. I already have image stabilization in all three of these cameras. And this has dual card slots. It's got, you know, everything, 40 megapixel sensor. It has everything that I need for one camera. So I don't really need it in the other camera. So this little camera I picked up for under $1,000. And granted that I paid more than it sold for list price when it came out. And that's a whole separate video I'm going to talk about in the future, just about what's happened with the Fujifilm aftermarket and the prices. If you've been tempted to want to buy a Fujifilm camera that's been discontinued, that now sells for more than the list price, share it down in the comments and tell me what your thoughts are about this. I'm really curious. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I really enjoy engaging with people in the comments, and I would love to hear what you think.